Hello everyone, I'm Dale Sebastian. I'm with the team Vina Peñones, Cristal Magsipo, and John Bres Gagara Cruz. Today we will talk about the passage in chapter 4 from year 1872 to 1875. This passage is all about the experiences of Rizal during his school days. According to him, he was introduced to the administrator or the Reverend Father Minister at Ateneo Municipal. Here comes Mr. Manuel Jerez, the nephew of Father Burgos, helped Rizal for the admission. Then Rizal was accepted. It says here, I dressed like the rest. That is, I put on a coat with a ready-made necktie. With what fervor I entered the chapel of the Jesuit fathers to hear Mass. Then he attended the Mass, right? What most fervent prayers I addressed to God for my sadness. I didn't know whom else to invoke. After Mass, I went to class where I saw a great number of children. There's Spaniards, Mestizos, and Filipinos. And a Jesuit who was a professor. Then he was called Father Jose Beck. He was a tall man, thin, with a body slightly bent forward, with hasty pace, an ascetic, severe and inspired physiognomy, sunken, small eyes, sharp, Grecian nose, fine lips, forming an arc whose end turned towards his beard. The father was somewhat a lunatic, so that one should not be surprised to find him sometimes disgusted himself, playing like a child. Among my classmates, I should mention to you some were quite interesting. And Joaquin Garrido, a Spanish mestizo, Moises Santiago, a mathematician and a penman. So Rizal emphasized that this guy, Moses Santiago, is good in writing. Then Gonzalo Marzano, a throne of Roman Empire. According to Rizal, the school chose the best students by putting two groups of students for competition.
After retreat, I left and I found my brother waiting for me to take me home, which I was about 25 minutes from the college where I didn't want to stay in the walled city, which seemed to me very gloomy. I found a companion called Pastor Milena, a boy of my own age. The house was small, located at Caraballo Street. A river ran alongside the corners. The house consisted of a dining room, a drawing room, a sleeping room, and kitchen. A bower covered the small space between the gate and the stairs. My landlady was an unmarried woman called Titay, who owed us over 300 pesos. Her mother lived with us, a good old woman, almost harmless and sane, and some young Spanish mestizos, the fruits of real love affairs. I shall not tell you how much I suffered, nor shall I tell you of my displeasures and joys. I will only tell you what happened to me in the class during that year. At the end of 1 week, I was promoted and I stayed at Nuna de Colegio de Santa Isabel, paying 3 pesos there. I lived with Pastor. A month later, I was already the emperor. How happy I was when for the first time I got a religious print for a prize. In the first quarter, I won a prize with the grade of excellent, but afterwards, I was disgusted on account of some words uttered by my professor, and I didn't want to study hard anymore. So at the end of the year, to my misfortune, I obtained only accessit in all my subjects, grade of excellent without getting any prize. I spent my vacation in my hometown and I accompanied my elder sister Naneng to Tanawan for the town feast. This happened in 1873, but my happiness was never complete for my mother was not yet with us. I went to visit her then alone without telling my father about it. This was after the school term and I told her that I received accessit. With what delight I surprised her. But afterwards embraced each other weeping. It was almost more than a year that we had not seen each other. Even now I remember with sad pleasure the mute scene that occurred between us. How cruel men are towards their fellow men. I visited her again. When vacation was over, I had to return to Manila to enroll for the second year course and to look for a landlady inside the walled city, for I was tired living outside the city. I found one on Magallanes Street, number 6, where lived an old lady called Doña Pepay, widow with her daughter, also a widow, called Doña Encarnacion with 4 sons, Jose, Rafael, Ignacio, and Ramon. Nothing extraordinary happened to me this year. I only had other classmates, or rather,
But this time, I began to devote myself to my leisure hours to the reading of novels. Though years before, I had already read El Último Bancareje, but I didn't read it with ardor. Imagine a boy of 12 years reading the Count of Monte Cristo, enjoying sustained dialogues and delighting in its beauties and following step by step its hero in his revenge. Under the pretext that I had to study universal history, I importuned my father to buy me Cesar Cantu's work, and God alone knows the benefit I got from its perusal. For despite my average studiousness, my little practice in the Castilian tongue, in the following year I was able to win prizes in the quarterly examinations, and I would have won medal were it not for some mistakes in Spanish, that unfortunately I spoke badly, which enabled the young man M.G., a European, to have an advantage over me in this regard. Thus, in order to study the third year course, I had to return to Manila and found Doña Pepa without a room for boarders. I had to stay at the house of DPM together with a rich fellow townsman called Quintero. I was discontented because they were strict with me, but I kept regular hours, which was good for me. I prayed and played with the landlord's children. My mother was not delayed in coming out free, acquitted, and vindicated, and as soon as she was out, she came to embrace me. I wept. After 2 months and a half, I left that house and returned to the recently vacated room in the house of my landlady, Doña Pepay, and returned also to the same life as before. As a result of what happened to me in my studies, as I have already narrated, I received only the first prize in Latin, that is, a medal, not like last year, so that I returned to my hometown discontented, though I knew that many would have danced with joy for less. My family resolved to put me in the college as a boarder. Indeed, it was time, for I was giving very little attention to my studies. I was already approaching 13 years, and I had not yet made any brilliant showing to my classmates. Until lasted my happiest days. Though short, but what does it matter if they were short?
Chapter 4, 1872 to 1875. Admission in Ateneo Municipal to continue his study. Jose Rizal enrolled in Ateneo Municipal. Father Magin Ferrando, Rev. Father Minister, he refused to admit Jose for two reasons. First, he was late for registration, and second, he was sickly and undersized for his age. He was then 11 years old. Manuel Jerez, Ceres Burgos, nephew of ill-fated Father Burgos, Rizal was admitted to Ateneo because of him. First year, 1872 to 1873. Father Jose Beck, Jose first professor in Ateneo. Rizal described him as the following: he was tall, manly, and with a body slightly bent forward with hasty pace, an ascetic, severe, and inspired physiognomy, sunken, small eyes, sharp, Grecian nose, fine lips, forming an arc whose end turned towards his beard. The father was somewhat a lunatic, so that one should not be surprised to find him sometimes disgusted himself, playing like a child. Rizal stayed outside Intramuros in small house at Caraballo Street. Titay, Rizal's first landlady who owed them 300 peso. Being a newcomer and knowing little Spanish, Rizal was placed at the bottom of the class. He was an externo, hence he was assigned to the Carthaginian, occupying the end of the line. After a month, he became an emperor. Jesuit education system. The system of education given by the Jesuit in Ateneo was more advanced than that of the college in the period. It trained the characters of the student by rigid discipline and religious instruction, mass in the morning before beginning of the daily classes. Classes in every subject were opened and closed with prayers. In Jesuit colleges, in order to stimulate the student, they put up to two empires. Roman Empire consisting of the internos or borders, Carthaginian Empire composed of externos, non-borders. Two groups, Roman Empire and Carthaginian Empire, were in constant competition for supremacy in the class. They have their distinctive banners, red for the Roman and blue for the Carthaginian. Ranks: best student, emperor; second best, tribune; third best, decarion; fourth best, centurion; fifth best, standard bearer. Radillo, official uniform of Ateneo student consisting of a coat with a ready-made tie. Rizal in standard form Ateneo. He won a religious print as a prize. First quarter, first prize with a grade of excellent. End of the year, access it in all subject with a grade of excellent, no first prize. Rizal took private lesson in Santa Isabel College during the moon recesses. He paid 3 pesos for those extra Spanish lesson.
And that would be the end of the discussion. Thank you for listening.